So we are recording. Yeah, this is exciting to be with Brooke and Kyle today and just to connect about our work and the way our work touches one another and those that we support in this really, really important time to find ourselves resourced in some way together through this. So I just really appreciate Brooke for kind of reaching out and wanting to connect with us, and just an opportunity for her to share as well with what's coming up for her. And Kyle, thank you for all that you do, all of the content that you produce and provide. And I think it'd be nice to just maybe start with a little check-ins. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, check-in sounds good.
Sounds
You want
good.
to kick it off, Brooke?
I can. So I had written to Michelle on Instagram that I didn't feel like I was actually reaching out because I feel like you're in my field. I don't feel separate from you, or like time passes. I don't know if you feel the same way. It doesn't matter either way to me. There's an etheric family piece to you and knowing you, and also just very grateful that you are out on the airwaves broadcasting what you're doing. I'm not broadcasting quite as much. I'm doing a little bit more private work. So I just want to acknowledge that I really appreciate it, what you're doing, and it means
thank
a
you.
lot to me. Yeah,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it keeps a continuity.
Yeah.
Maybe just mentally, but heart-wise too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely feel that when you said I don't feel like we're ever separate, there's this feeling of like soul family, and like we're all doing the work in our own ways, and when we can come together, it's a real blessing, so thanks for saying that.
Totally.
Yeah. And Michelle, the last time I saw you, we were up in Berkeley, I think, or something, doing something powerful, a thing I didn't expect to see you at. And I haven't really been too connected with that community since then, one-on-one. I feel like what I do, I'm kind of out here, sort of floating out here, doing this peripheral thing that's very connected to traditional yoga, Vedic lineage. And that is sustaining. And has been, and I guess like socially, even in a way, calling on the masters and calling on my teachers and that sort of thing. And I think that this may be the portal to begin to have the conversations that I have been wanting to, because we're all sort of being forced to communicate. Like that's all we can do right now is communicate, which is lovely. So I guess part of my reaching out, like I'm trying to connect. I guess I'm trying to connect. And in the IMHU thing that we did in Ojai, Michelle, where I met you, we had that assignment to talk about connecting, disconnecting, and reconnecting. I've been thinking about that a lot. What am I good at? And reconnecting is very challenging for me. It's always been a challenging one. And so that's something that I'm practicing. And I think in reaching out to you, because it was safe to do, established in that container through IMHU, I felt like I could do it. And again, I esteem you both. In my mind, you're like superstars. And so for you to be taking the time, I'm humbled. I guess there's some humility and some gratitude in there, because I feel like there's quite a bit that we could talk about. I know that I'm referring people to Kyle a lot, and the conversations are coming up, and I think there's a lot of intersectionality, and also a lot that I can bring that I don't have a lot of people to talk about. This sort of Aquarian thing that's happening, this awakening that's happening. that's talked about in Vedic scripture, but needs to be reinterpreted for our time. And I think that it's starting to become more and more relevant. I can just feel it almost bursting from me. And so I'd like to be able to bring that as a resource to the conversation for people who are seeking or, needing grounding or, whatever support that it is that I can offer from back here.
Mm.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, and the connection to like lineage and wisdom from ancient times and reinterpreting all of that. I feels to me very relevant, when we're talking about these times, like what's happening, right? And that there's so many narratives of what's going on and finding what's true and what feels in alignment for each person, and to that can be a narrative that uplifts and promotes empowerment and bringing forth one's gifts in community. I'm getting that a lot too. It's like we are the ones we've been waiting for, like the next Buddha is the Sangha, right? All of this, that like the reincarnation of this time is that we need to be together and all work together to create the new templates, the new world. Yeah.
Spiritual leadership.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Collaborations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know if any of you have seen Fantastic Fungi yet, but I have the privilege to see it a bunch of times, being on some panels. But there was a really great quote in there talking about nature and kind of like reflecting on that Darwinian, survival of the fittest. But actually, what we're finding out is nature really thrives with cooperation. Looking at the mycelia, how that really helps with communication below the forest floor and helps to transfer nutrients to different things. And so cooperation, I think that's the future. It's in collaboration.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, and I'm also really feeling into like how this time there's this sense of like when things go over a certain threshold of imbalance and how to bring balance back. And I think both of you really are talking a lot in your work about the body, right? Reconnecting to the body and doing that in a trauma-informed way. So that's something that I know that each of you carries in unique ways, and also like at a very like central part of your work. And so that's something that I'd love to hear if either of you feel like connecting, like how to take care of the physical body and how that's connected to the spirit and soul and this time.
Mm-hmm. I can either take notes and talk after Kyle, or I can start talking now because I could go.
Yeah, we'll let you go then if it's bubbling up for you.
Okay, so thanks. So something that I've been thinking a lot about is this respiratory illness that we're running from or succumbing to. And the breath and the lungs of the earth and, the atmosphere and how clear the air is in all of the cities right now and how we're all holding our breath, that's, in the pantheon of yoga and all of the hundreds or thousands of tools that I have in my back pocket. That it's always the thing that comes up, and it's a thing that regulates your nervous system, and it's all of that stuff, but it bears reminding ourselves and seeing that metaphor, and collectively, can we all take a deep breath and be in acceptance of what's happening, and then we can move forward with that exhalation, the vasodilation, the space, the expansion of consciousness that happens physiologically during that exhalation and at the pause. When the heart beats, when we're not breathing in or out, we just breathed out and we're pumping, like there's a consciousness and a prana thing that's happening, with the rhythm, and we were so out of rhythm. And, even in the last 3 weeks, like everybody's migrating online and trying to make it look like it looked before. And, I don't know that this is necessarily a time for really accomplishing. I think this is a time for observing and observing the breath and observing what we've been practicing and how we're putting it into practice now. Forgiveness, acceptance, denial, not communicating with the loved ones that we live with, or, how, it's all starting to catch up to us. So when you ask that, I think of the breath, and I think of the lungs, and I think of the fires that we've had, and I think of, this is deep ecology, and so we can affect deep ecology in this biological organism here, each one of us, and each one of us is the only sovereign of each one of us. Remembering that piece, and that's so Aquarian, our individual, and then the collective, and how we're all affecting one another or affected by one another,
Yeah, I'm just taking a deep breath now as you're saying that, just like, yes, I'm really feeling that connection, like body as like we are like the cells of the body of the earth, and our lungs are the lungs, and the trees are breathing, and we're breathing with the trees, and the trees are trying to I'm part of the Tree Sisters movement with Claire, and it's just really powerful to make those connections, that the fires and the trees and the pollution and the breathing, and it's all, and it's of course it's a respiratory virus, right? That's happening. So there's this symbolism of that too, and I'm getting grief too, like the grief of it all. Yeah, love, and it's just like like when you're crying so hard that it's hard to breathe. Yeah.
And then also for Kyle, the earth and the fat of mushrooms in any form right now, and how much we need that.
Mm-hmm.
For grounding, what we've done to the soil, depleting through agriculture and all that stuff. It's this deep ecology conversation, just like Joanna Macy was suggesting 25 years ago. She knew it was coming. Yes. I'm so glad to have the terminology and the consciousness about it.
Yes. Yeah. It also reminds me of breath work too, when you're talking about the breath, and breathe Psyche Soma, and so much of the connection of the breath and the body, and using breath in that way as a way to access deeper states, and connect to what needs to be clear, what needs to be opened, right? At least at this expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to do it in a way that is, conscientious of the outcome.
Mm.
So, right, not doing it so that we are having a good time at a festival and that's it, but like, what are we doing with our consciousness?
Mm-hmm.
This is really powerful stuff that we're talking about. We're talking about prana and pranayama, and
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to fuck with it.
No, it can really bring up a lot of stuff,
Right.
and really move energy. Yeah, it was really interesting to kick this off, like exploring the respiratory illness and why is this showing up right now. I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday about this. Actually, kind of funny, a few days ago, I had a interesting dream, I guess, about somatics and all this stuff as well. But something that came up, I was talking about the lungs in general and how it's really interesting that this respiratory virus is emerging, and just all the grief that we're holding on to. And I think that was kind of got sparked. I've been listening to a bunch of Martine Prechtel on grief and praise, and just this idea that, like, as a culture, we don't grieve, and we're kind of stuck in these trauma loops, and we're not processing stuff, and it's like, where has this gotten us? And kind of comes back to this whole idea, my one site setting sun, it's like really kind of came from some of Martine's work, this idea that the hungry ghosts are always chasing the souls towards the setting sun of the west. We're never really home because we never really sit and actually grieve and praise life. We're just always trying to search for the next best thing and constantly on the move. To some extent, humans are always on the move, right? Early ancestors were pretty nomadic, but just this idea that we're not taking the time to sit and grieve, and how that really manifests in the lungs. I mean, in Chinese medicine, lungs resonate with grief. That's where all the grief is held, is in the lungs. It was just so funny. I was having this dream. It was Halloween and people were coming to the door, and what I was giving out to people were Reichian and Alexander Lowen techniques of opening up the chest and really working with all this stuff to loosen all this trauma that we have up that's like stored in our bodies. I mean, even right now, if anybody's just taking the time to really tune in to your body, like where are you holding all this, right? And I even noticed, like, psychosomatically, it's been really interesting, all this tightness here, and feeling like sometimes I can't breathe as this virus is really kind of taking its course and really spreading, and even kind of feeling that I'm like, oh God, am I coming down with something, but just noticing that's the anxiety, that's the fear. And then when you can really tap into there, you go, oh my God, there's so much grief in there too. And have we really created these containers to properly grieve for anything in our lives, past people that have passed, grieving for the earth, right? I think that's a lot of stuff that's going on right now. There's a lot of grief for the earth, especially with like climate change and as things are progressing, deforestation, and not really thinking about this stuff. Like there's so much grief that we're not processing and digesting, and it's getting stuck in the lungs.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. And I'm really feeling the way that like all of these systems kind of, they're all pointing to that connection, right? The emotional body, the energetic body, the physical body, and the larger body of the planet, and that there are ecologies that are here that are suffering, and that there are ecologies there that are going through things that are, everything's really alive. Everything's really intense, right? There's a shift that's happening, a big shift,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, when you were even saying that about ecology, I mean, the first thing that popped in my head, I mean, you guys kind of hinted towards it in the beginning of fires, but I was just even thinking about like all the wildlife that was killed in Australia in those month-long fires, right? And just thinking about like grieving for all this stuff, right? Sometimes we don't even create the space to grieve for Mother Earth or all the little critters, because we got to think about the next paycheck, or we got to figure out like what we're doing with our lives and figure out what we're creating, instead of actually taking the time to sit with all this and be like, wow, the earth is hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Animals are going extinct, and we're just kind of caught up in our own cycle of whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right. And there's no escaping it. So it's kind of like now is the time to be confronted,
Mm-hmm.
And in similar ways to non-ordinary states or extreme states, the way that they have a confrontational way of waking up different aspects or systems, or the underlying agendas, or how systems don't serve everyone, or right. So the social justice aspect of it, and really naming all of the things that the systems that are in place that we see, like this, speaking of that Aquarian, it's like the self in the community, and in these new systems, it's like the old ruler was Saturn, the new ruler is Uranus. It's like, it's both together. It's like, what are the new structures that are going to be, revolutionary, that can bring in the energies and carry forth what we're actually here to do, which is to all bring forth all of ourselves, that all of what we can, and there's many people that don't have that opportunity because of loss of job, and their kids are home, and two of the kids' meals were supposed to be gotten by the school and they can't anymore, so many things, right? And so just really being in gratitude for the fact that we have the opportunity to have these conversations, and that we have computers, and that we can sit here and, do this work of sharing, and just really sending out so much support to those that are really struggling either with the disease or with the economic impact of that. Just wanted to name that.
Yeah, thank you. The privilege.
Yeah.
The privilege and the responsibility
Yes.
that comes from having privilege. So from a spiritual perspective, right? How blessed have I been that, I could put myself in whatever kind of economic strata that, makes sense, relatively speaking. But I think maybe that's not the point necessarily. The point is, how do I use what I have?
Yes.
And what I have is, half a lifetime of spiritual practice and exploration of breathing techniques and asana, moving my body, and, meditation and faith and trust and acceptance and, surrender, and all of those principles that will help us on the social level. So you're talking about lungs and the metaphor and the, emotional and the grief and the mental and the physical, but there's also the social piece. And so the social leadership and recognizing the confrontation that grief has offered us here. And then what are we gonna do with it?
Yeah.
So, I've definitely spent some time this week, like grinding my teeth and bitching to my friends and like freaking out, frankly. And I also want to be in solution and look at the principles that are offered by, all traditions that have been successful, those universal principles of the yamas and niyamas, they call them in yoga, non-harming, non-stealing, non-lying, or you call it generosity, honesty, how do we want to look at it, and what are we going to do with it? And I just have always appreciated the privilege of being, a white girl born in Santa Monica, California, taken to a house in Beverly Hills. That was the address. We didn't belong there, but we were there. And Bikram was down the street, and I had access to yoga information, and my mom was a housewife and had time to play a record with the yoga pictures, and we had the privilege of having the time and the space and the financial freedom or whatever to have just that moment. We weren't worried about the bombs dropping. We weren't worried about, we went into poverty later when my dad left, and like it was a mess. And then my sister died, right? Suicide and the spiritual emergence that I had and all of that stuff. And then recovering, and now, okay, it's time to serve. Like that's the only thing that any spiritual tradition tells us, or 12-step recovery. It's like, okay, you're up. Service. You're gonna make the coffee, you're gonna put out the chairs. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna talk to people? Are you gonna help people recover from trauma? So connecting to the other people who are doing these things like you is so nourishing for me. Like I feel more relaxed right this minute than I think I might have in the last 3.5 days. Being able to like even voice that, like, let's talk about the next wave. Yeah, this is awful. I might get sick. I might die. I might never be able to say goodbye. Like, what a trip to all of a sudden be confronted with that on such a global level. And I might not die. And I might have something really valuable to offer people who don't necessarily, who haven't necessarily put those things together yet. Yoga therapy, principled living, simple living, recovery, what both of you offer so brilliantly.
That's right. This time of service. It's like the ante is upped. It's like everything that we brought before and now do more, and
Yeah.
do more and take care of yourself. So finding that balance also,
Yeah.
of the way to really hone in on the practices that help resource us so that we can serve. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when you're speaking of the yamas and the niyamas and I just feel the word integrity.
Yeah.
That it's like service with integrity. Like
Yeah.
that's a big piece too.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can't define what integrity means, or you don't know what it feels like in your body, then let's start talking about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's where the spiritual emergency comes in. Our values have changed. We see things differently, and we don't know how do we go on.
How do we move forward, integrate those experiences? Yeah.
Yeah, who do we talk to about it?
Mm-hmm.
We talk to us. Like us.
Right. I mean, being spiritual emergence coaches, having offering that to other people, but also having one another to kind of support each other as we support those who are going through it, or if our own process ebbs and flows into emergency, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's important to have also the community of support as well as the community of service, and those two don't have to be mutually exclusive. We can have a group of practitioners that are also in it, and we're in it, and we're helping each other at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this idea of service keeps coming up, and I think in times of crisis, I don't know, part of the soul wants to be of service, right? And I think that's like kind of what draws me forward at times of, Brooke, like you said, like, I don't know, maybe I could die tomorrow, right? May not be able to say goodbye to people. And I always think about like, what does the soul want to be doing in these last possible few hours, days, weeks, months, and how is that really kind of like creating an existential crisis in a sense for folks, to really start stepping into a role to be of service. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and a lot of people may have these hidden gifts that they didn't even know about. And maybe this is the opportunity to start stepping into those roles. It's really interesting looking at like past crises and like plagues and stuff like that. Like, I was just doing some philosophy with my teacher and talking about like Plato, for example, right after the plague, and just like how influential Western philosophy was right after the plague hit Athens, and how that's been the basis of kind of Western civilization in a sense. And I thought that was really interesting. Or who was the other person? Einstein or somebody, or Newton, Isaac Newton, in isolation really created like, his physics, while being in isolation. How are these kind of like birthing processes? We're kind of all in gestation, and then how do we move forward and create something new out of all this, even though it's terrifying and the suffering's real. And I'm located in New Jersey, so I'm in the New Jersey, New York epicenter. And I mean, I don't even know how many cases New York has. I think like close to 100,000. I think it's like 80 something, over 80. New Jersey's hitting, I don't know, over 25 or something like that, thousand. So it's real, seeing like young people die here in the state, and that's kind of terrifying, and being like, this is super real at times too. But also like, how is that triggering the soul to want to step in to be of service of some capacity while people are suffering? If we have these gifts, how do we step into that?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to acknowledge you for already having stepped into it. And you both are midwifing these soul expressions from people. Like maybe part of our new service is to encourage people to recognize the service that they have already done, and like we're in such this lack, scarcity, I don't do enough thing. You know, can we like sit back and not pat ourselves on the back necessarily, but just like breathe for a second? You know, do I have, you know,
It's important.
like mobilize everybody, come on, like, ooh, you know, like I need a fucking break right now.
Yeah.
And to love you. I need to love you. I need to be generous and like to continue that prana moving, that circulation flowing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can speak to how impactful restorative yoga for me. I had a trauma-informed restorative yoga teacher who was also my trauma teacher. So I felt really safe to be able to drop into those places and really open and relax and allow my body to start to be soothed. Like after my hospitalizations, like that, those years, you know, in my recovery, like how impactful that type of work has been for me and for my nervous system. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Even I haven't sat in one of your classes, and I know it would be so nourishing to do so, but I mean, just the modality itself. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me that you'd had that experience, because you mentioned that to me once, but it wasn't up at the front here. Yeah, so I specialize in restorative yoga, yoga nidra, and meditation in a trauma-sensitive way for people in spiritual emergence processes and for mental health, for people who maybe haven't connected the mental health and spiritual emergence. Duality, I guess, unity, I guess. Yeah, and you know, I've been kind of shy in the last 4 years. I just want to ask you, can you hear that car outside? Do you hear background noise? Are you good?
That's fine.
Good.
Okay. You know, yoga teachers don't necessarily have the greatest reputation necessarily, and so there's been a lot of really deliberate marketing of myself or presentation of myself in the public. And there are things I have been very private about because of the conservative community that I live in and have lived in for about 25 years. On the central coast of California. So we're near Santa Barbara, but not that close. We're near Monterey and Big Sur, but still really different here. And so needing to, you know, build a business and all of that, haven't really felt that open to talk more about my story. And I think that my story would be really helpful to talk about. I think I kind of need a shove. And I just know that there are so many people who could be supported by what it is that I do. And I had some things I needed to like protect almost to be able to get to the place where I am right now. You know what I mean? Building a business is like a spiritual practice, and it's so consuming, you know?
Yeah.
You guys know, right? You're talking about that for a second.
It's like birthing. You're birthing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it makes sense that, you know, sometimes there's more of an incubation phase and a very deliberate, you know, exposure, so to speak, of yourself in certain ways. And that's necessary at certain phases, you know. And there's a part of you that makes what you offer even more niche and more specific, that it can serve those people with that need, you know.
Yeah, you know, I guess in this conversation with you guys, I'm recognizing that what was the word you just used? Exposure. Trying to find who I'm comfortable with, exposing myself. And so I think trusting you guys because of the IMHU training that you both had, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then I've been trained through Assist too, right?
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I went through the training with Elizabeth Sabat all last year. It was super intense. It was amazing. She's the most amazing facilitator and teacher. She is amazing. I don't even know what to say.
Mm.
Besides that, like superlative, creating a container for us to have spells. I mean, I had spells last year of like memories flooding and being on my knees crying about things that I hadn't been able to expose to myself, you know. So having that stellar training has spoiled me. Those two stellar trainings with stellar humans at the helm, like, and Katrina too, through Assist, that it's very challenging for me to feel comfortable speaking to people about the inner workings and the backstory of the niche that I inhabit, or however you want to say that, you know.
Well, it's still pretty taboo in a sense, and right, so it feels really vulnerable to want to come out and talk about this stuff. And how do we maybe find the inner confidence to talk about it, right? Especially if we've had like traumas around it, and like maybe have been shamed in the past, or things have happened, right? It's like even scarier to step out and share that part of ourselves, because it's like, you know, oh, I got in trouble for this, or somebody shamed me for it, or,
I was
you know, I could
hospitalized
get in trouble. Yeah, exactly. Hospitalized for it.
restrained for decades.
Yep, exactly. That there, it's a real risk. And not to even mention like past lives where being in our truth and in our power, there was persecution. You know, that I'm doing so much of the clearing work with folks around those lives, especially in this life, because of what gets triggered when we need to step forward. And all of that trauma is like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die, or someone I love is going to, you know, the risk is great sometimes. Yeah. Uh-huh. But, you know, I just want to acknowledge, I mean, not to kind of be too meta about it, but like you're doing it right now, you know, I mean, in the ways that you have, even just sitting here with us, you know, and we're recording, and, you know, this is a step in that process. And wherever we go with this conversation, or may this be just a, you know, a lily pad along the path for you to find the way that feels best for you, whatever that is. You know, just like in trauma work, right? We're going to titrate. We're not going to overexpose. And if we do, we step back and we do like self-soothing and all of that. So this is part of it, though. You're reaching out and us sitting in this circle together.
Thank you, Michelle. You're so pixie and fey, and yet you're so maternal and gushy. I just love it. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Kyle, I want to hear more from you. There's like this whole world behind what you like. So it's fascinating and personal for each person, and you know, you're an activist, and like totally look at how clear your skin is. Like clearly you're
That might be the HD effect on Zoom.
I
I don't know if it's really that clear in real life.
Well, it looks like you're doing great.
Thank you.
How
Thank
are
you.
you doing? How are you doing?
Good. I mean, things are, I guess, really taking off in a lot of different directions, and it's hard to stay grounded at times because of like all the movement here and there, and just like all the activity that's happening in this space. It's like, whoa, I feel like I'm everywhere all the time, which is exciting. And so at times I'm trying to figure out, how do I best be of service without burning myself out? And so that's a big thing I've been really thinking about, is like, you know, there's a lot of cool stuff happening, and there's like a lot of different roles I can do, and a lot of different roles I do wear, you know, podcasting, and then video editing, and then like trying to manage social media, and trying to do spiritual emergence coaching, and then trying to do therapy, and then trying to see like, you know, coaching clients, and trying to run a business. And, you know, it's like, I'm so, like all these little pieces. And I think something I've been thinking about recently is like, having all these individual pieces is helpful, all these different parts, but also how do I find a more integrative approach with all this? So I'm not this person 1 hour, this person the next hour. I'm playing this role this half an hour, instead of just like coming back in alignment and saying, this is how I need to show up every day. And we all have to wear multiple roles and hats when you run a business, but yeah, how do I get more in alignment to be of service the best I can be? And I think that's the most important thing that I've been really chewing on lately. It's like, what are my skills, and how do I really utilize that and push that forward? And I think, having conversations and trying to get information out there through podcasting has been really helpful, and I enjoy that. And I think it's much needed, especially, talking about these consciousness expanding experiences and psychedelics, and really trying to bring a lot of, I don't know, education around it, risk management. So, as these things start to become more mainstream, how do we really navigate this like really weird territory? I've been seeing a lot of like, business owners and stuff like that, reach out, and they're just transferring from the cannabis movement. And I sit there and scratch my head and I go, have they had an experience with this stuff? And they're calling it the next cannabis, but do you really know what you're signing up for at times? And I think it does give a really kind of ungrounded message at times when people promote stuff like that, because we're also putting people at risk. And we have to be really serious and cautious about how powerful these experiences can be. And there's a lot of vulnerable people out there in the world that are looking for this one cure, this one dose cure, which a lot of people have been advertising, and why a lot of investors are getting excited about this space, because here's something that has a really great cure rate, right? And I don't know how many emails I've gotten from people saying like, I tried this and I don't feel good still, and thinking about like, if we don't create the container to create change, you could have mystical experiences, but sometimes they're actually more destabilizing. We're thinking about spiritual emergence in a sense. It's like spiritual emergence and spiritual emergencies can sometimes be wonderful when we like get down to the integration phase, right? It's like, oh wow, I'm back. But I mean, they're really destabilizing and can really uproot us and really change things. So yeah, just really being on that education side and just being really honest about, the benefits and risks of these states of consciousness, and hopefully how to best navigate them. And I think that's really important. Now is like, breath work starting to become more popular, psychedelics are starting to become more popular, and a lot of these experiential things are starting to get out there in the mainstream. I mean, if anybody just watches like Goop Lab, right? You have psychedelics, Wim Hof, and like all these, I didn't watch the whole series, I forget what else is in there, but these things are starting to get out there more, and people are going, ooh, what is this? Right. And so, yeah, so I do feel like an activist at times. I'm like, yeah, we need these because we need more creative solutions for our mental health. I've been really thinking about the long-term psychological effects of coronavirus. It's just one thing from the virus itself, but like being in quarantine for this long, this idea of when is it safe to leave the home? We're dealing with an invisible like thing, and like
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
and how are our relationships going to be like changed for years because of this, right? It's crazy how one little thing could impact us for years down the line. Is I don't think business is going to return to normal, even though we might want it to, right? And so, yeah, what are the long-term psychological changes? And we need all the tools that we can have, but we also need to be really cautious about how we're implementing the tools, and not just rushing and saying this is great for everybody. I don't think so.
And they're the value of those support groups that we've been trained to facilitate. Just some thoughts, to have them available. They're super taxing for me. I have to be really well cared for personally to be able to be a peer in those groups and wear the hat of facilitator, right? Mm-hmm. There's an extra thing that's needed for that. And are you two familiar with Patanjali's yoga Kundalini yoga care?
Sounds familiar, but I'm not too sure.
Joan Harrigan, Shiva Hita, yeah. So she is another yoga teacher who does, if I may say, she and I are doing the same thing, except that she's not doing it now. I don't know what happened. She's closed down the center that they have outside Nashville. And on the resource list of we're not seeing people anymore, contact assist. And so because I have been one of the only facilitators trained by Assist running support groups, I'm starting to get calls, emails really. But I got one more this week and I thought, here they come. Mm-hmm. Here they come. And so what you're saying, Kyle, about like how do I wear all these hats, and like I feel the same thing. It's fragmented. My job description is like so multifaceted. And I'm wondering if maybe we go back to that first thing we talked about, which is collaboration. You know, when we're 15 years from now, when we're all portly and look different, except for tiny Michelle.
It'll be all wrinkly though, like a little hag witch.
You know what I'm saying? We're aging, and people who we may be those people who are speaking about and actually collaborating and have been collaborating.
Yes.
The mindset and the consciousness of how to do that and being able to do it and the training to do that. There's a leadership thing that just the term leadership comes up, and I was never in any kind of leadership programs at school or anything like that. I think I have maybe a natural disposition for that or something. 3 planets in Leo. Something.
Yeah, we're all Leo in the house. Sorry. Ellen and I are Leos too, so we got some fire.
That's right. So there. So I'm reading it right? Yeah. So I just kind of want to say, like, put your seatbelts on. Like, if I have any psychic consciousness, like, we're it. There's a not in a arrogant way. Except that I'm a Leo, so there's a little bit of tinge of that. But also, like, really continue, take care of myself, like, keep educating myself, keep connecting, doing all that stuff. And I'm curious who else those spiritual leaders are out there. Like, who do you know? Who do you think of? Who's on the level, like the heart level that I feel with you guys? I don't know if you feel the same thing with me. I think there's like this simpatico thing though. And
yes,
I'd love to be able to let them know that we're here. And who are those people in Africa? Who are those people in parts that we don't even talk about?
Yeah.
That's right. How do we connect? And I think that the way that we connect is by, I always, in 2012, when I was receiving my most sort of intense spiritual emergence, which I say went to emergency when I was hospitalized, not when I was in the experience itself. It was a very intense emergence experience. And I received the message that by sharing, it's like a song that we're calling out, that when the others that are in the tribe hear it, then they know that we're there. So that's kind of why, like, I felt this call, since then to share, whether it's doing videos or my book or whatever, I'm trying to get the word out so that I can find the others, And I feel
Mhm.
like so many of us, when we have that heart thing, it's like you're family. You know, this is our soul family. This is our, you know, we're contracted in a way to be collaborative right now. And so even though it is vulnerable at times, and it took me 7 years to get the thing done and out because of my own inner process of sharing and the vulnerability and the fear of everything, right? So, you know, just saying that I think it is time to step up and, you know, and pair off and do groups and, you know, all of that and pool our resources of facilitators and peers and, you know, and in these sister programs, Assist, MIHU, IHM, Integrative Mental Health for You, you know, and others too, you know, that are doing the work in their own way and bringing in different aspects to it. But I definitely am very interested in, you know, building more relationship with Assist as well. And when Kyle and I were there, it was just really stellar, and we met some really great people. So
yeah, we did.
Yeah, I'm glad you're in that community and doing great work with Elizabeth. And yeah, so that's great to hear.
Yeah, the community felt really awesome. It was actually, I think most of the conferences I go to are psychedelic conferences. And I went to one somatic conference, but it felt so reassuring just going to that Assist conference. I was like, this feels so good. And I think part of it too is kind of reigniting like the side of me that, you know, I talk about often, but you know, that near death experience side of things, and like hearing, you know, them playing a video of like integration challenges. And when I think about like psychedelic integration versus my near death integration, I think my near death experience has been so much harder to integrate than some of my psychedelic experiences. And so hearing, you know, this video of all these near death experience folks and talking about their integration process is like, I feel like I'm home. You know, and I'm like, this is like where I haven't actually been putting a lot of energy at times because of, you know, other things have kind of swept up. But yeah, I really enjoyed that community there, and I'm excited to form more relationships with Assist over the next few years.
Yeah.
Assist needs money. Assist needs people to be trained. Assist needs all those things. And if something were to happen to Assist where it would fold, for example, or something because we just couldn't keep the momentum up during this time, whatever, if it got quiet and then got louder again later, still it's the people and the people coming together. And you know, Katrina and I worked on another project together before she was associated with Assist, and so there's something, you know, there's a community. There's a community that's being revealed.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. That we heard the call from Emma or from Assist, or we resonated with it, and then we showed up, and then there's the others, you know?
Yeah. And then that's what I was thinking. So you know, it's easy to gripe, right? It's easy to gripe and be like, oh, woe is me, so lonely. So lonely out here in California, boo-hoo-hoo. I have this great yoga life, like poo-hoo. You know?
I'm out in New Jersey, out in conservative part. It's pretty boring out here.
I know. So I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Oh, so this is what
Griping
it is.
at living out in California.
If sassy comes out.
Oh, we have to laugh. We gotta laugh.
We have to. It's medicine.
Yeah. So I go back to those esoteric, etheric things, like everybody's doing that April 4th meditation on Saturday, right? You heard about that, Kyle? Yeah, you know what I'm talking
I don't
about.
think so.
Oh, you don't?
4 portal. Bringing
That's
it through
no.
Pleiadians and Akashic and Archangel Michael, and just bring them all in.
It's a big deal. So we're supposed to be like getting some sunlight tomorrow afternoon. And then there's like Eastern time, I think it's 10:45. There's a meditation happening everywhere. Or whenever you can, right? So So I think that's it too, is this experience here as a human in life. We can't always be together. How amazing that we have the internet. And also remember to connect mentally. This yoga practice of mine is mental. This faith practice is mental. This uplifted practice is so mental, you know, and how powerful the mental is. I think they're trying to start tapping into it with AI or whatever, right? So like, you know, get agency over it, figure out how to use it, and, you know, let's telecommunicate ESP style, because I think there's going to be a potency to it that might be amplified as this awakening, this global awakening, and the 5G turns up. Like, I think it's going to be, there's going to be more electricity on the wire to run information from us, which we might need for some reason.
So I brought these friends to share. So I have my shungite and I have my selenite.
Shungite.
Yay, perfect. Good.
Tourmaline.
Yes. Fluorite. Right. But I think, yeah, what comes up for me when you share that is like, okay, so things are going to there's more chances for us to step into those gifts again, right? The gifts of intuition. And then Kyle, you mentioned the power of the dream world. Like I felt that also, like lately, especially since quarantine, the dream world has really opened up. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe we can meet there too and do some stuff. I'm interested in that. It's like, let's do like a dream cast, you know, have a meeting and vision some things and, you know, get some healing done.
My dreams have been weird.
A lot's happening, feels like. Yeah. I was in New Zealand the other day. My dream. Couldn't
meet up with people.
Yeah. Weird. Interesting. So yeah, these other realms, access to these other realms and connecting there. You get that.
So if you want to meet in Dream World, just let me know and I'll put it on my schedule.
Exactly. We'll book it. Sounds good.
Oh my God. Slave to the calendar. And time has been so warpy. Like 5 different clients this week. We missed the time. Like, oh, was it 10:30? It was 11:30. No, it was like that. People don't know what day it is, of course, right? Everybody's talking about
well,
that,
it's weird too, of like just being like quarantined and out of your daily habits. And I'm like thinking, I mean, for me, it hasn't been so different because I just like operate everything out of my bedroom here. And like, this is just a normal day, but I try to go out more when I'm allowed, you know, I get my car, I drive, there's things to do. I don't even know how long I've been sitting here for. I forget when I started quarantining myself, and I'm like, has it been a week? Has it been 2 weeks? Has it been 3 weeks? I'm like, I have no idea when I even started this, and it's starting to feel timeless. Like the days just go by, and then I like scratch my head and go, what the hell did I just do today? And it's starting to just like speed up in a sense, and I'm like, this is very, very strange. I don't know if anybody else is feeling that way, but and then like my weekends sometimes don't exist. It's like every day is the same, and then like tomorrow I have all this stuff booked out. I'm like, I'm not even taking days off, and it's just like, whoa. Before there was like some sort of like routine. Okay, the weekend's here, I get to just chill. But now it's like I don't even want to go outside. I guess I'll just sit in and try to connect with people, right? So it's starting to life is starting to feel very dreamlike.
Yeah.
One of the astrologers that I listened to said that there's someone she listens to who says that we've moved out of this magnetic belt. Earth has moved out of this magnetic belt, and we're moving through a part of space we've never been before. And so the energies that are coming in are different, the poles are different. And I'm wondering if it has something to do with that, because everybody's feeling it. It does feel warpy. I totally am with you.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. And when you said like mixing calendars up and schedules, like I was supposed to have a call this morning and totally was 2 hours off. And I was just like, I'm screwing up my calendars. I don't even know what the hell I'm scheduling at times.
Mm.
Well, this huge restructuring, Saturn and Capricorn and all of
Yes.
that, like maybe it's okay. I don't feel like pissed about it. I'm just like,
No, I'm just like,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you guys too much longer, but I want to tell you how grateful I am that I got to spend this little bit of time with you. Thank you. I hope we can do it again if you're willing.
yeah, it's been really awesome connecting with you. I feel like we haven't connected in a while, so this has been really great to reconnect.
Yeah, thanks. Good. I'm so glad. Feel the same.
Yeah, me too. I feel really nourished by it. I feel it in my heart and in my body. I just feel uplifted and inspired, and just excited to see what unfolds in terms of more collaborations and, just building community in that way, that heart community that we're talking about. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
be a love letter, Valentine, to you and all of our soul friends everywhere. Yeah, if there's any kind of support I can offer anybody, I do online work and all that stuff, blah blah blah, all the normal things, all the things. And there's going to be some kind of, mark my words, there's going to be one conversation that I have that everything starts to, I don't know, gel, I guess. And I think maybe it is the same for you guys, if it hasn't already happened. I mean, I do feel like it's happened, in a way.
This is totally off topic, but something just popped in my head of like, I was trying to think like when was the last time we were chatting, and I guess you were talking about like putting stuff out there and finding the others and just putting your voice out there. And didn't we come up with like a little group, and weren't we going to call it Beacon or like Lighthouse as like a...
We did. And it's so
Yeah.
funny because when Michelle was talking just a second ago, the word that came up was beacon. And so I think maybe I thought like we all kind of got busy and like we just sort of let it fall away like a snowflake, but we can totally pick that up, because I think one of the reasons I'm not running a group right now online is because I don't have the capacity and the bandwidth, because I don't have like buddies on the side to like download with. And are you interested in that?
I think it's still
Possibly.
a thing. It's still a thing, and there's always need, I know Kyle and Lucas and I are doing a group too, so you can hop in on that one, or we could do two separate groups, or we could do different combinations. So in case there's scheduling stuff, I mean, I know time is really weird, but like there still is like, oh, I'm doing another thing at that time. Then, okay, let's do it with Kyle, or let's do it with Michelle, or, so I feel like there's a way to like have us all networked. So it's like whoever's available at this particular time shows up for that, That's my vision of it.
I'd like to know more about your groups, the dates, the times, if there's a topic, or I listen to...
We've been leaving them pretty open. But that would be awesome to collaborate more on that, because I feel like it would be really nice to be able to offer more of those supports for folks and collaborate on that. So yeah, let's definitely explore some stuff.
Okay, well, just give me the next date and I'll put it on my schedule.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so
April
much.
19th, I think.
Yes, I was just going to look because I don't remember numbers very well, but I have and we might as well say it in the Zoomcast because then people will know. Yes, 2 to 4 p.m. PST on the 19th.
And what day of the week is that?
It's a Sunday. Yeah.
Oh, Sunday.
Yeah.
Never.
So we'll connect then, and then we can also talk about, another Zoomcast, or getting us all together, or if there's a certain topic that we want to explore further, like the trauma-informed ethics is another topic I want to delve in really deeply with the two of you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That feels really important. And each one of us is, holding, various communities that, do work that opens people. And sometimes it happens spontaneously through trauma or other things. So whether it's spontaneous or induced, I think spiritual emergence needs to be running through all of these communities as a foundational framework. And also how to hold that in an ethical way. So that's a follow-up that I would like to see down the road to do a deeper dive.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Count me in.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Schedule it.
Yeah, so many things. And we'll dream into it, we'll vision, we'll meet in the dreams, we'll
Love it.
telepathically connect, and we'll see what it evolves.
Yeah, so glad you're still game.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you, Brooke.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be thinking about you over there in New Jersey. You're
Yeah.
doing good.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, thank you. Luckily, I'm a little away from the city, so that's a little bit helpful for my mind. But yeah, thank you. It's getting kind of crazy out here on the
Yeah.
East Coast,
I believe it.
but
It's crazy out
hopefully
here.
it slows down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully it only lasts, but who knows?
Mhm, mhm.
You guys both live
I mean,
alone.
only lasts till the summer. I'm sorry, I like cut that off. I'm like, oh, hopefully it lasts. No, only for the summer. What were you saying?
I was asking, I don't mean to pry or anything, but I live alone.
Mm,
Wondering if
I
you
don't.
you don't live alone.
mhm,
I live with family at the moment.
Uh-huh.
mhm.
Michelle?
I have a roommate, and she has a little dog, which is great.
That's
I love,
nice.
I lived alone for many years before that, and so now I have, and my roommate's a therapist also, so we
Uh-huh.
kind of are both working from home, and got a new router, so that's possible. So it's not like, wait, what? I'm like trying to hold space for you, and I can't hear what you're saying.
I know.
So yeah, but each of those things like comes with a different complexities, right? It's like sometimes being
True.
alone is confrontational, sometimes being with people is, and how to ride
Right.
and navigate all of that. So
Right.
that we're here to support one another, and and really taking the time to have downtime too, and do self-care and have days off, or even a couple hours off if we need to. I'm just hearing Kyle say he's so busy, and I'm like, it's becoming more and more non-negotiable for me to have downtime where I'm just with and in presence, and in whether it's my body or in nature or something, because there's so much need, and there's so much love to be in service, and also this vessel, this being needs to have some service too to herself. So
Definitely,
finding
definitely.
that balance, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I appreciate you both so much, and this time that we share together, and I look forward to more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Likewise. Yeah, thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. See you in Dreamland.
Yeah, see you
Yeah.
then.
Michelle.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.